You know that feeling when you're staring at like a massive group chat,
Oh, the dreaded group chat.
right? You're just trying to organize a weekend getaway with your friends. And everyone wants to have this perfectly breezy, spontaneous, sun-drenched experience.
Yeah, lots of enthusiastic emojis.
Exactly. Tons of emojis. But underneath all of that, someone has to actually figure out how to, move 12 people from point A to point B without anyone having a total meltdown.
It's basically the classic trap of group leisure, right?
Yeah.
Because the illusion of a spontaneous, effortless day out completely masks the reality of what it actually takes to pull it off.
Yes. We see the final product on social media, everyone clinking glasses, perfectly dressed, laughing.
Right.
But we don't see the frantic logistics happening in the background. So today, we're doing a deep dive into the hidden architecture of a perfect day out.
Which is super fascinating.
It really is. We're going to explore why trying to maximize your vacation itinerary is actually ruining it.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll talk about the hidden social cost of being the designated driver and how getting the logistics right actually buys you the freedom to be spontaneous.
Which is completely counterintuitive to most people, I think.
Our
We tend to think that heavy planning kills spontaneity, but in reality, structured planning is the only thing that protects it.
So to figure out exactly how that works, we're unpacking a highly specific blueprint today.
Yeah, a really interesting one.
We are looking at the Palm Springs to Temecula Wine Tour Transportation Guide. Now, I know what you might be thinking.
Like, I'm not going to Southern California anytime soon.
Not like, I'm not organizing a wine tour this weekend. But stick with us, because honestly, even if you never set foot in a vineyard, this document is a masterclass in operational planning.
It really is.
It's about routing and mitigating the risks of literally any group excursion.
And that's the lens we need to look through today. The principles outlined here, like how to manage limited time, how to move groups through physical space, how to maintain social cohesion, they apply to, well, pretty much anything.
A corporate retreat?
Yeah, or a huge family reunion, or honestly, just trying to get your friends across town for a birthday dinner.
Okay, let's unpack this, because right out of the gate, the guide throws a bucket of cold water on the romanticized idea of just hopping in the car and seeing where the road takes you.
Yeah, no spontaneity there.
Right. It forces you to confront the sheer geographic reality of what you're trying to do.
And the geographic reality of this specific route from the Coachella Valley area to the Temecula Valley is that you aren't just popping over to the next neighborhood.
Not at all.
We're talking about a 1.5 to 2 hour transit time each way.
Each way.
And that's highly dependent on Southern California traffic patterns, which,
Can be a nightmare.
Exactly.
Which means right off the bat, you're committing to up to 4 hours in a vehicle just to complete the round trip.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm trying to DIY this trip with my friends, my first thought is usually, okay, we'll just throw the address in a GPS and take turns driving.
Sure, that's what most people think.
Right. But the guide points out that the primary stressor of a wine tour isn't the tasting or the crowds, it's the driving.
What's fascinating here is what we might call the massive cognitive tax of that drive.
Oh, I like that phrase, cognitive tax.
Because think about what navigating a route like that actually demands. You're merging on and off major highways, you're dealing with unpredictable traffic.
Right.
And then, you transition to these rural, sprawling estate roads in Temecula.
And those wineries are spread out.
They are notably spread out. You need confirmed exact addresses. Because if you make a wrong turn and have to backtrack,
You're not just losing 10 minutes.
exactly, you might lose your taste of window entirely.
Which makes you realize that if you're the one driving, you're not actually on vacation.
No, you're working.
You're fully working.
Yeah.
You're watching the clock. You're squinting at navigation apps. You're probably sweating trying to find parking in a packed, dusty gravel lot.
Precisely. And this is how the guide establishes its core value proposition.
Right.
They aren't just selling a ride in a nice car, They are selling the complete removal of that cognitive tax.
Wow.
Professional chauffeurs know the terrain. They know where the cell service drops out on those back roads.
Which always happens when you need the GPS the most.
Every time. By outsourcing the driving, you are essentially outsourcing the anxiety.
But, okay, knowing the route is only half the battle. Because if you miscalculate that driving time, you don't just lose daylight. You start bleeding the most valuable currency of the trip.
Which is time.
Exactly, your schedule. Since 4 hours of your day are instantly eaten up by transit, How you manage the remaining time basically dictates whether the trip is a success or a total disaster.
The math here is incredibly unforgiving.
Yeah.
Let's say you have an 8-hour window for this excursion. Subtract the 4 hours of driving, and you only have 4 hours of actual on-the-ground activity time.
That goes by so fast.
So fast. This is exactly why the guide strongly recommends morning departures.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because if you don't leave early, you're not getting back to your hotel or resort until very late. And that introduces exhaustion into the group dynamic.
Right. It's all about protecting the back end of the day. And the guide emphasizes that advance reservations are non-negotiable.
Especially on peak days.
Yeah, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. You literally have to lock in your tasting times before you can even finalize your transportation.
Because when your time currency is that limited, you cannot afford logistical friction.
No.
Imagine rolling up to a popular winery with 8 people on a Saturday afternoon without a reservation.
Oh, I'm stressed just thinking about it.
You're going to be standing in the sun for an hour just waiting for a table.
And at that point, the schedule just cascades into failure.
And everyone gets cranky.
Okay, but I have to push back on something here, because this is where the guide's advice felt completely backwards to me.
Okay, what was it?
Well, if I'm paying premium hourly rates for a private luxury vehicle, my absolute first instinct is to cram in as many stops as humanly possible.
To get your money's worth.
Exactly. I want to hit 6, maybe 7 spots. But the guide explicitly caps the sweet spot at just 3 to 4 wineries.
Yeah, they do.
Why are they telling me to do less? Aren't I leaving value on the table?
I mean, it feels that way, doesn't it? But this touches on a vital operational concept the guide introduces called buffer time.
Buffer time.
Yes. The guide actively warns against the feeling of being rushed. If we look at the psychology of group dynamics, cramming an itinerary is a guaranteed recipe for decision fatigue and physical exhaustion.
So the fear of missing out actually ruins the things you do end up experiencing.
Exactly. Because think about the mechanics of moving a group of people. It's not a military unit, right?
Yeah.
It's a social gathering.
Herding cats.
Literally herding cats. It takes time to herd people back to the vehicle. Someone always needs to use the restroom at the last minute. Or
Always.
someone gets caught up chatting with the sommelier and wants to buy a case of wine. Checkout takes 10 extra minutes.
Right.
If your itinerary is packed tight, those perfectly normal human moments suddenly become massive, stressful delays.
Because now you're late for the next reservation.
Exactly. And then you end up barking orders at your friends just to keep on schedule.
You become the bad guy.
Right. You become the enforcer. But buffer time acts as a pressure valve. By deliberately limiting the day to 3 or 4 stops and building an empty space between them, that pressure valve absorbs all the natural friction of group travel.
So if a tasting runs 20 minutes long, the schedule doesn't explode.
Exactly. The buffer time absorbs the heat.
I love that concept of a pressure valve. It's the difference between actually savoring an experience and just, like, speed running it.
Savoring versus speed running, yeah.
Because the timing is expertly managed in the background, the group feels like they have all the time in the world. It creates that illusion of spontaneity we talked about at the beginning.
Exactly. The structure provides the freedom.
All right, so we've mapped out the geographic realities, and we've built a schedule with plenty of buffer time as our pressure valve. Right. The next major hurdle is the physical environment itself, the fleet mechanics. Choosing the right vehicle to actually transport the group and understanding the economics behind how that works.
This is crucial because the vehicle isn't just a utilitarian mode of transport to get you from A to B. It is the physical container for your group's social dynamic.
Wow. Yeah.
And the guide breaks down vehicle tiers based strictly on accurate passenger counts.
Yeah, I saw that. They have sedans, which are positioned for couples or a romantic getaway.
Right.
Then executive SUVs for families or mid-sized groups. And finally, group vehicles, which are the bigger vans or sprinters for large celebration parties.
Like a bachelorette weekend.
Exactly. And selecting the right tier is far more important than just making sure everyone has a seatbelt.
It really is.
It makes me think about how we choose venues for a party. You wouldn't host an intimate dinner for 4 inside a massive, echoing banquet hall.
No, that would be weird.
And you wouldn't try to shove 20 people into a tiny studio apartment. The space dictates the energy. The guide talks about keeping the group together, which essentially turns the vehicle into a single, moving living room.
Social gravity is a great way to think about it.
Social gravity. Okay, explain that.
Well, if you have a group of 10 people and you decide to save money by splitting them into 3 separate rideshare cars, you instantly fracture the social gravity.
Oh, because they're physically separated?
Right. They're having 3 separate conversations, listening to 3 different radios, experiencing 3 different driver temperaments.
Yeah.
When you all arrive at the destination, the energy is completely disjointed.
You essentially have to rebuild the party from scratch at every single stop.
Precisely. The moving living room maintains that cohesive, festive social momentum from the minute you pull out of the driveway.
That makes a ton of sense.
But of course, providing that moving living room comes with strict economics. The guide breaks down the transparent pricing factors:
Which are?
duration, vehicle capacity, operating expenses, travel distance, and seasonal demand.
Which is totally logical. I mean, a larger group vehicle has higher overhead.
Right.
And if you're booking during peak tourism seasons in Palm Springs, obviously the availability is going to tighten up and affect the price.
Absolutely.
But what I found really interesting about the economics here is how the time is sold. They book in hourly blocks.
Yes. Not a flat daily rate.
Right. And my initial thought was, wouldn't a flat rate be easier? But then I realized, if you book a flat rate, you're usually locked into a highly rigid contract.
Yeah.
The hourly block structure seems to actually benefit the consumer's need for flexibility.
It builds adaptability directly into the commercial agreement. Because group travel is inherently unpredictable.
Definitely.
If your group is having an incredible time at the third winery, the sunset is beautiful and nobody wants to leave,
Right.
an hourly block system usually allows you to just extend the time.
You aren't violating a rigid to-the-minute itinerary. You just add an hour.
Exactly. It accommodates the buffer time.
Okay. And the guide also notes that you can coordinate airport transfers prior to the weekend.
Which is really smart.
Yeah, it secures that logistical chain from the moment your group lands. But there was one logistical requirement that seemed incredibly strict.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
The guide hammers home the point that you must provide a 100% accurate passenger count.
Yes, they do not treat that as a polite suggestion.
But why are they so rigid about it? Like, let's say I book an SUV for 6 people. The morning of the trip, my cousin decides to tag along.
Okay.
Why can't we just squeeze one extra person in the back? What is the big deal?
It comes down to strict regulatory compliance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In the commercial transportation industry, passenger counts dictate legal capacity, safety regulations, and insurance liabilities. If a vehicle is commercially insured and registered to carry 6 passengers and 7 people try to get in, the chauffeur legally cannot put the vehicle in drive.
Wow. So that one extra person could completely tank the entire day before you even leave the driveway.
Exactly. The driver's commercial license is on the line.
That's huge.
So sharing an accurate count isn't about the company trying to, upcharge you. It ensures the right physical container is selected for compliance, safety, and comfort.
Which brings us to the ultimate payoff. Because we've been talking about routing and buffer times and fleet economics. But what is the actual emotional value proposition of all this?
Right.
We're connecting all these logistical details to the final payoff for the consumer. And at its core, this guide is about managing a specific activity, a wine tour.
And the unavoidable reality of a wine tour is that it centers entirely around the consumption of alcohol over a prolonged period.
Right, which completely changes the stakes. We aren't just going to a museum. Suddenly, that 4-hour round trip on a dark highway isn't just an annoyance. It is a massive liability.
Absolutely.
Private transportation removes the need for designated drivers. But I want to dig deeper into that because it's not exactly a profound revelation that if you drink, you need a driver.
Sure.
So what is the deeper social dynamic at play here?
This raises an important question about how we value our relationships and our leisure time. Think about the traditional DIY approach.
Okay.
You draw straws, and someone has to be the designated driver. What are you actually asking that person to do?
You're asking them to work.
You're asking them to take on an immense burden. They are physically present, but they are socially isolated from the core activity.
Yeah.
They have to abstain, manage the navigation apps, monitor the sobriety of everyone else, herd the group back to the car,
and then shoulder the incredible responsibility of driving winding, unfamiliar roads at night.
Right.
It's basically punishing your most responsible friend. You're turning them into the group's chaperone. And honestly, I've been that person.
We all have.
It breeds so much resentment. You're sitting there drinking water while everyone else is getting loud and having the time of their lives, and you're just stressing about the drive home. It fundamentally fractures the group dynamic.
And that is the true product being sold here.
Yeah.
The true product isn't the leather seats or the surround sound or even the vehicle itself. The vehicle is just the delivery mechanism. The true product is participation.
Wow. Buying back participation?
Exactly. By outsourcing the designated driver role to a professional, you are buying back your friend's participation. 100% of the group gets to be fully present and engage in the activity responsibly.
That's so true.
The celebratory mood is preserved, which is critical for high-stakes events like bachelorette parties or major birthdays. Nobody feels alienated. Nobody is holding on to resentment.
It is a profound shift in perspective. You aren't paying for a ride. You are paying to ensure your group's dynamic remains totally unbroken and that everyone stays safe.
Yeah.
It's essentially an insurance policy for the memory of the trip.
It's the ultimate peace of mind. The heavy lifting is handled, the liability is shifted to a professional, and the group is allowed to simply exist in the moment together.
That is incredibly insightful. Okay, let's look at the big picture takeaways from this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We've seen that a successful, seemingly effortless group event does not happen by accident. It relies on respecting the geographic realities of your route, utilizing a structured schedule, using buffer time as a pressure valve to absorb friction.
Keeping the group's social gravity intact.
Right, and knowing when to outsource the heavy lifting to buy back everyone's participation.
It's basically a blueprint for taking any complex, high-stakes plan and engineering the stress right out of it.
Absolutely. Now, for you listening, if you actually are heading to Southern California and want to look at the exact blueprint we analyzed today, it was provided by Palm Springs Limo Services.
Which is a great resource.
It really is. You can find them at 777 East Tuckwitz Canyon Way in Palm Springs, California. Or, just easily find their guides, their fleet details, and their contact information online. They've got a ton of content across platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest.
We've spent this time seeing how professionalizing your transportation fundamentally changes the social dynamic of a wine trip. But it leaves you with a fascinating question to consider. How many other leisure activities in our lives do we inadvertently ruin by insisting on managing the logistics ourselves rather than simply allowing ourselves to be the guest at our own party?
Oh, that is a fantastic thought to leave on. Are you taking on the cognitive tax when you could just be enjoying the experience? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems behind the scenes, keep exploring, and we'll catch you next time.